Hi, I'm Gordy Gundaker. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor podcast.
Hi, I'm Don Martin. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor. And this thing is big. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor. I'm Don Martin, joined by my man,
Gordy Gundaker.
Our show is proud to be sponsored by the great folks of Nutrien Ag, Hoker Truckee, Bodies by Skinny. We also have a new sponsor of last week, Hot Rod Septic came on board. We have Reed Millard of Millard Family Chapels. And before we even go any further in this, I first want to congratulate my man next to me for making the show of Fairberry last week. I don't know if most people know there's about 80 cars in attendance, some of the best cars in the country. And he locked himself in on Friday night, and which is a huge achievement in itself. And I'm going to let Gordy kind of take over from here and talk a little bit about everything that happened and kind of transpired at Fairbury over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first off, just locking in Friday night's a hard deal. Everything relies on your first two laps of the night. We hot lapped, and really once we hot lapped on Friday, I felt like we had a pretty good piece just right out from there. I had a couple guys that came right up to me and were like, man, you look pretty good there. So that gives you a good confidence boost going into your qualifying laps. And the racetrack wasn't normal. I don't want to say not normal Fairbury, but like the qualifying times and how slowed down the racetrack already was. When we went out there for Group B, it was all the way up against the fence in 1 and 2. There was not a lot of grip to be had, and then 3 and 4 was really tricky because it was almost crummy. I actually watched Shirley's lap in Group A. He went out somewhere in the middle of Group A, laid a really good lap down as the racetrack had slowed down and ended up towards the front of his. And I just pretty much tried to mimic what he was doing. We went out there, and then I went quick time when I went, which it still is funny to me because we were 13. I went 13.5, which a lot of times when we qualify at Fairbury, it's 12.5. And so you don't really feel that good. I felt like I made a good lap, and fortunate enough to be quick time for 3 cars until the old Rocket 1 comes out. And me and Chev, I got to laugh with him. He pulled around as he went to go to tech, and I stood there like, man, what the fuck? Like, you just can't give me nothing, can you? And I went right over to him, and we were laughing about it. And yeah, set us up for our prelim on Friday night, and they come over and told us right before we were going out they were going to do some track prep. And I was, wasn't sure how much they were going to do, but they told us they were going to do some. And me, Max Blair, and Kevin Rumley all stood together talking about what tires we were going to go on. And the groups before us, a lot of them had gone on softer stuff. And Hoffman and his, which was he was in the third one, was on soft stuff and was able to drive from 11th or whatever it was to third in his. So we all kind of agreed to go on the same tires, and really it turned out not to be the correct choice, but I think everybody else did the same thing. I stayed a little bit freer than I would have liked to, thinking the racetrack might have been faster, and kind of that's really why I ended up just roaming around in the top to kind of hang on, because I was not good enough to run the bottom, and I knew I couldn't.
And that's unusual.
Yeah, very much. And it was, I realized it pretty quickly and knew, okay, I'm going to have to do something different and kind of get out here and just keep my momentum up, and was able to do that pretty well. Obviously, I know we had a hell of a race there from 2nd to 6th or 7th. Huddy drove clean off from us, but it would take me about 2 laps after a restart to get back going, and then I would find my way back to Max and Duty, and so we ended up third and locked in for Saturday, which the sigh of relief that really brings is pretty massive, because as we all saw, we had a massive amount of rain Saturday night, and then the qualifiers on Saturday, there was not a lot of passing to be had. It was really hammered down, and you just don't want to be in that situation. So we were really happy, obviously, to be locked in and go out there and just make our hot laps and then get ready for what ended up being the 24 hours of the Prairie Dirt Classic. But just, being able to make that event, lock yourself in, it's one of the hardest things to do easily, is doing it at the Prairie Dirt Classic, because it is the best race car drivers in the country, and you have to be absolutely on top of your game from the second you get there till the end of the 100-lapper on Saturday, because that place is so cutthroat. I mean, you look at a guy like RTJ, he struggled and struggled and struggled really all weekend. I don't think a lot of people expected that. So, just obviously thrilled with the weekend. It's unfortunate, we heard a motor Saturday night about 13, 14 laps in, and I hate that for really our entire team. Not saying we would have had a car to necessarily contend for the win, but a long race like that, I feel like we would have been inside the top 10 for sure. That's what I feel like, and just wasn't in the cards.
One of the things I want to talk about, did you the pass that Shirley made on JD in the feature, on the preliminary feature on Friday, the way he got underneath the JD going into one I thought was probably the pass of the weekend.
Yeah,
and it might have set him up for the weekend.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I'm sure JD probably wasn't real happy with it. You could tell the way he got to driving after that he was mad and going hard. But man, like I said, it's cutthroat, and
it's Fairbury.
Yeah, and it's really ultimately it won Shirley the 100-lapper on Saturday night, because if he doesn't put himself in this front four redraw, if he doesn't redraw where he does, that could have been anybody else. Now, I don't think anybody thought that the front row being Sheppy and Bobby, that anybody was going to sneak by them, but clearly that happened, and kudos to Brian for doing that and knowing. He knows he's lost that race more times than people have ever even had a shot at winning it. So, I don't think he was going to let this one go. And, like I said, he put himself in a good spot. He did what, he thought he had to do. And, man, you got to be aggressive there. It's one of those places that if you're not being the aggressor, somebody's going to be on you. So, like I said, it's probably not like I said, JD probably didn't love it. Brian probably didn't want to really run all over him to do it. The front guys like that don't really race that way. I mean,
right.
And so those things tend to happen. But it's just the way it goes, and I don't even think it was really all that bad.
I did not either.
By any means. It's not what I'm really saying. Just one of those deals that, hey, you got to go. And,
right.
and that was.
He saw an opening and he took it.
You have to. And then just the way it goes. And if you're not up on the wheel and ready to be on kill, then you're going to get killed. And there's a lot of cars that got killed this weekend from a lot of different guys. Watched a ton of it, and that's just the nature of racing at Fairberry for as much money as we're racing for, what the crowd and the atmosphere, what that all does to you. Everybody gets ramped up a little bit more. And
it's Thunderdome, man.
Yeah, it is. And, the part of it is that, you're all of a sudden that normal, car length you give a guy turns into way less than that. And it's just, it's just the way it goes. It's a lot. You still got to give and take, but you got to take a lot more that weekend if you want to be near the front.
Well, the other thing I thought was interesting too, me and you've talked about it, man, has anybody had more bad luck this year than Brian Shirley? No. I mean, the way they started the season when the screwdriver went through the tire, you couldn't even make some of this shit up. No. And then you watch the way he just went after it. He was like, this one's not getting away from me.
Right.
And that's what I saw Saturday night. And kudos to the 28 car. Yep. Dennis Erb Jr. has been putting some nice runs together over the last month. I mean, he is coming on. As a matter of fact, I know they're at Wilmot tonight, and wouldn't you be surprised if he put a W on the board here?
Yeah.
It's coming.
And he's been strong over about the last month or so. Seems like he kind of rekindled some of that magic he had before he did a little bit of chassis switching around. Then he got back in the rocket car. Yeah. It seems like he's got some of that, because 2 years ago, man, he was every night he was going to drive by in, and we all know where he likes to run on the racetrack. But his car, I mean, when they took off the other night in their prelim deal, he drove straight to the front. Like we were in the infield watching, was like, man, he might just sneak right on by everybody here. So, yeah, he was really good. There was a lot of a lot of moving and shaking in the feature outside of Brian leading every lap. But I mean, hell, them guys that were racing second through really, 12th, 13th, 14th. It was madness. They were sliding each other. There was a lot of comers and goers in that feature, and yeah, it was pretty wild.
This is a show of people. I was amazed when you look at the crowd and it's 2:00 in the morning and it still looked like the same crowd and the same amount of people that were there at 6:00 for opening ceremonies.
Yeah, nobody went home.
Nobody left. It's what Fairberry does is what Fairberry does.
Yes.
I don't know how to say any of that. I mean, we were blessed that we had Matt on the show last week, and then all the surprises and watching him. And I don't know if you saw it in the opening ceremonies. He was ready to cry.
Yeah.
The work that I don't think people know the amount of work and effort that him and his team put into this event. And I know for one, watching, I just have more and more admiration for the town, the fans, the drivers. I don't know how, their problem is, how do you make that event bigger? I don't know how you do it, Gord.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Squirrel takes $80,000 out of there.
Right. That's what's crazy. Even on Friday, we're staring all out there throughout the hours of the day, looking at rain coming and everything. They moved the show up an hour on Friday, move all of our features first, put us in a spot where we could get everything in, and then they still got all the modified features in, and not 20 minutes after that last checkered, it downpoured. I mean, all night it was pouring. And so, that's, kudos to them to realizing, like, okay, we got to make a change. We got to change the schedule up. Let's get what we need to get in first, and we'll deal with the rest later. Obviously, Saturday, we deal with weather yet again, and they still found a way to get us, get the feature in on Saturday night. And, there's a lot of us really were sitting there Saturday after watching how hard it rained, thinking, man, we might be better off just doing this tomorrow. And a lot of us were up there voicing our opinions on it. I was one of them. There was a lot of JD and T-Mac and every driver that was in the 100-lapper was all standing up there. And to be honest, there was a lot of us that did not want to race it Saturday night, to be completely honest. And it really wasn't anything against Fairberry Speedway. It wasn't that we didn't think they were up to the
been anywhere.
Yes, it was just more like, hey, are we doing the right thing here? And there's a lot of people are going to tell you a lot of different things. I think Matt will be the first to tell you that the decision that they made is, maybe in his mind it's still not the best, what he thought was the best, or did it turn out the best? I think they made this decision that was, hey, we still have all the people here, we'd rather not bring this back tomorrow, let's do this tonight. And I mean, the race turned out as good as it could have for the amount of rain that we got. Obviously the infield was a disaster, and there's the pit area is a disaster. I mean, I saw today they canceled their next 2 weeks of races because they have such a mess at Fairberry from the amount of rain that they took on over the course of Friday and Saturday, and even Thursday night. It rained Thursday night too. So, it just for what it was, I kudos to them for getting the show in. Truly, a lot of people wouldn't even have thought twice about it. They would have just said, hey, we're going to move it to Sunday. It's just done, and they made what they thought was the best decision to get that race in Saturday night, and ultimately got 100 laps in.
Did that affect your party in the pits?
There was no party in the pits after Saturday night. I promise you, it was way too late. I think by the time we got done, loaded all of our stuff up, went and got the T-shirt trailers closed up, and ready to load. I think I laid down about 5 in the morning. It was late. Now, everybody was wore out, man. It was hot all week there, and they just, everybody was gassed. I know there was a lot of people there for Brian's, bank stuff, and when he came back and people out, but the crowd died down pretty fast. There was not the normal party in the pits after the Prairie Dirt Classic on Saturday night, I can tell you that much.
I mean, I know me and you were good friends with Brian Shirley, and this is a guy that won Knoxville, the first one, and really hasn't been, he's knocked on the door at some of these big races. We all know he's capable of it, and you could really tell Saturday night that there was a relief, and I, for one, knowing that, here he talks about how he saw his wife at the hospital, that they, on the off day, and they could come back. Folks at home, man, I don't know if you realize what Brian Shirley sometimes goes through. He's kind of a private person. He doesn't let a lot of people into what's going on with him, but he's got a wonderful father. Jaco, doesn't get any better than that. Jaco can't even come to a lot of the races to watch his son because he's running the business and helping out with the kids. And and Brian's, they got businesses, they've got the bar, they got the parlor, they got a lot of shit going on. And what Jay does to let Brian race, and Brian be the first one to tell you, man, my dad doesn't get enough credit, for what he does. So I just want to give a big shout out to Jaco, because as much as that win was Brian's, it was yours too. Yeah. And we love you. And anybody that sees Jaco walking in the pit area with that V-neck white T-shirt, dude, I mean, he's just a great man. Yeah. And and I know you're close. You had to be happy for Brian too as well.
I was, man. I absolutely was. It was super cool to see, obviously, this year, the struggles and the things they had. On Friday night after the races, a bunch of us were all hanging out, and, Brian and I were over there just bullshitting for a while, and, I just told him kind of the same thing. Like, man, I was pumped to see you just break through some of this bad luck, even if it was just the prelim deal on Friday. And obviously we didn't know what was going to happen Saturday, but, super, super excited for those guys. I happened to be right by my trailer. We were parked kind of next to each other in a way. They come rolling back from the bank right as he was going by, and I got to tell him good job and everything. And I went back over there after the madness of people were gone, and he was in the rig grabbing a shower, so I didn't even get to talk to him. But I texted him yesterday on the way home and just told him, man, how pumped I was for him again, just to see him get that one. It's I think one of the things you realize about the guys that you race with is, as bad as they want to beat you, the guys that respect you, or that you have respect for, will always be one of the first ones to over there congratulate you, and it goes a long way. I'll tell you what, anytime you win these big events, when you have the respect from your peers, the guys you race with, when those guys come over and tell you good job, it means a lot. And he did it holding off the best.
Better believe it.
He did an unbelievable job keeping Bobby and Brandon behind him. They threw everything they could at him. Yep. He did everything he could do, and clearly it was enough. And one time he kind of messed up there and about let Bobby by him. And if Bobby gets by him in that moment, the race is over, because you don't have the restart where they all bottle up. And it worked out for him, because right about the time that he had to fend Bobby off, they caught a yellow, let him get his breath back.
That's right.
And that works out great. And you have to have those breaks to win those big races. I don't care what anybody says. Winning those is you still got to have the luck at the end of the day, right?
And it doesn't matter who you are.
No, it happens to a lot of us. It's very easy to get put in a bad spot one time, and when you catch a good break, like, you'll take those every day of the week. There is not one person in the pit area that would tell you, oh, shit, I don't need good luck. Like, the hell you don't. We all need it. And everything fell Brian's way, but he, obviously he drove his ass off for that one. I mean, he did everything right. Sheppy gets the normal Sheppy 5 laps to go, spanking the horse, and he drives right to him and gets there. And I'm sure too it helps that it was Sheppy and Brian in that moment, because they raced.
Respect.
Yes, and I'm not saying somebody else would have just went over there and bonsai'd him over, but it's possible. Mm-hmm. So it definitely went a long way, and it was really cool to see. Like I said, for Brian, his entire team, all his guys that work on their team. I got to, when I saw them, I got to tell them all congrats. I've watched them work their asses off this year as well, and how much they've endured, and so. Just really cool. It was a great moment for the Illinois guys, to get another one at Fairberry, I mean, that's a big deal. You know, that's their land, and they protect it, and they make sure that you know that the Illinois boys are the ones that
they swept the
on
podium.
top. Yeah. So, you know, I think the 3 features on 3 of the 4 on Friday were Illinois guys. So, yeah, it's it was Bobby, Brandon, and Shirley. So, yeah, it was overall, you know, it was a great weekend at Fair. It always is, you know, from the auction on Thursday, you know, hell, the Wednesday night race was really good.
It was good.
So, yeah, just overall great weekend. You know, I wish we would have had a little bit better luck at the end of it, but shit happens.
Real quick, before we get off that subject too, I want to make sure I congratulate Bob Cullen.
Yes.
Bob Cullen is a guy that I don't think he's ever put any pressure on Brian. Even when things get tough, now Brian may say, "Oh, bullshit," but you don't see it. I know Bob pretty well, and Bob is about as classy as it gets, you know. And Brian is his guy. From the minute that Brian drove for Bob is just Bob I think will quit racing before anybody else drives for him. It'll be his kid to be the next one to drive.
Mm-hmm.
But congratulations to Bob Cullen again. Thoughts and prayers with Shannon Shirley too as well. Hope you're doing better. Hopefully that win put a big old smile on your face, because it sure put a smile on all of ours.
Yeah.
Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about this week, since we're already on the late model front. Congratulations again, not only making the race, now the fan fun at Cedar Lake.
Yep.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. You know what, the people at Cedar Lake treat me better than a lot of places, I'd say, because they keep having me back. You know, I don't know how many times that we've been in the fans fund deal now, but it's a lot. And dude, that money goes a long way. People don't realize how far that goes. And you know, Trevor now is reaping some of the benefits. He's been in the fans fund now the last couple of years. We've gone up there, and man, they just they seem to love us up there, and I love going up to Cedar Lake. It's one of my favorite events of the year as well. It's got a big atmosphere. It's a big crowd, and you know, when you go up there and get to racing hard, and the shows you get to put on up there, it's a lot of fun, and I'm excited to go up there. I always am every year. It's one of, it's definitely in the tops of my racetracks. You know, the racing's always good. And that 100 lapper is, same deal. It's an animal, and the entire week is the same build up and lead up to everything. It's tough to even make that race, and I don't know how many I've been a part of now. It's been quite a few, but it's it's definitely one for the mantle if you can ever find a way to win it.
Yes, and when are you heading out?
We'll leave. We won't leave till Wednesday night. A lot of guys are, obviously racing Wilmot tonight, and I know they're moving T-shirt trailers in on Tuesday and Wednesday and stuff, but we'll leave later Wednesday. Just got to get motors changed and things done now, and yeah, we'll head out there and get up there and be ready to kid it on all over again.
Well, folks, that kind of sums up the late model part of it. Now we got a lot of talk about sprint cars right now. We got a big race in our backyard this week. We got the World of Outlaws at Pevely, Missouri, with the Extreme Midgets. So we got that in town, which is always, the Ironman's always one hell of a race. And Gordy's best friends, they're rolling into town here probably in the next couple of days. Looking forward to the 17 car is a big factor this weekend. Probably is taking more cash out of that joint than anybody. And so Sheldon being in town, going after the Ironman's got to make you pretty happy.
Oh yeah. I love when those boys come to town. I wish we got to go watch that race. I love those sprint cars ripping around Pevely is something that you got to experience,
Oh, it's awesome.
A couple of years ago when Larson went a sub 10, like, people don't realize how fast that really is.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was there.
And even 10-second laps around there is just ridiculous. I know when we've gone, we're low 12s, and that's hauling ass. I mean, I don't know what the one year I sat on the front row of I think it was a summer national race or something, and I was like 12.15, and I'm like, dude, we are freaking moving. So I couldn't imagine another 2 seconds faster than that. So it's spectacular what those guys do around that place, and they always find a way, no matter what the racetrack gives them, to put on just a great show. And I think especially now with the way, Pevely is really it's a elbows up style. The generation of drivers you have now in sprint cars produces even better racing, because they just, they're all over each other, and it's big sliders, late sliders. It just seems to always work out, and then you usually find the 15 riding right out in the middle of the racetrack, just trying to not get hit.
The Pevely, I heard a fan when I was at Eldora, and they were sitting in front of me. They were from Michigan, and they come to Pevely every year for the Armory, and they call it Baby Eldora. And I thought, boy, that's actually kind of a fitting name for it, in a way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. So Josh Carroll and his staff, we wish you guys all the best. Fans, go out and support Pevely this weekend. And the other big marquee event of the weekend, and we all know, we're August, and you think of Iowa.
Yep.
And Thursday night, the 360 Nationals kick off. And this year, I think, is the most exciting 360 Nationals that we probably have had in the last 25 years, because it damn near looks like a high limit race.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, Kyle, Rico, I was looking at it. It's ridiculous. And folks, because I don't want to make any mistakes, I got a little bit of a list I put together for the folks at home for what's kind of going on there. And I don't know if Gordy can look at this too, as well as, but we're talking Larson. We're talking Brad Sweet. We got Peck. Chase Randall's got so many laps around that place in a 360.
Yep.
And then you look at Crouch, Casey Kane, Brad, Gio, Pursley.
Yeah.
We ain't even talked about Brian Brown.
I know it.
And then you talk to McCarls.
Yeah.
This is Madsen, and then you got J-Mac, and you got Tanner Holmes. And that's not including the ASC guys with Averdeep, who's won this event. And then you look at some of the, other national, Darren Pittman's coming in for this. Yeah. It is nuts. What the fans, it's a mini nationals.
It is. Yep.
I'd like you to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, obviously people realize now, the racers, that they got to get as many laps as they can at Knoxville, and it's great for the 360 crowd. It's great for everything leading up to the event, because that's half of the best guys of the Knoxville field. That you might see those guys in both A mains. You probably will see all those guys in both A mains. So that's it's putting the 360 event as a marquee event to now want to go to, because listen, people might tell you, the 360 to 410, it's different. Yes, sure it is different. The amount of horsepower a 410 makes compared to them 360s, it doesn't mean the racing's any different. When you put those guys in race cars, no matter what it is, you are going to get unbelievable racing across the board. And you throw guys in there like Larson and Rico and Brad Sweet, you're like, holy shit, this is just as big as going to anywhere else you could go in the country, and watch a Saturday night A main. Like, these guys are going to get it on for 3 days, and somebody's going to walk out of there, if it's not one of those guys, and it's maybe, say, not a household name, shit, they're doing something.
Well, that's the big thing about it, is the Knoxville regulars that race there every Saturday night, the Jamie Balls of the world.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what, Kyle Larson would be the first one if he was sitting up here to tell you, going, those guys are pretty good. They race there every week. Yeah. We don't run 360s every week. Right. So they're up there every week. And the other thing is, the 360s compared to the 410s, I believe it's a 2-second difference now in the lap times.
Yep.
So it's not like we're not talking like, they're pretty damn close.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is it's slower, but people don't realize how fast some 410s are really going. And the 360s do level the playing field, I would say, a little bit more, right? You still got the guys who have, the really good 360 motors, and, there is that difference, I would say, but that window is a lot smaller than it is in the 410 stuff. So, kudos to these national guys going in there going, well, if we get our tails kicked for some reason, we'll just take it. But they know how demanding it is to get those extra laps leading up to the nationals, and that's why they're there. That's why they're going, and that's why they're not going to Pevely. Mm-hmm. Now, people at home are probably saying, well, they don't want to go support the Outlaws. I don't really think that's it.
It's not nothing to do with it.
I think that it has everything to do with let's get as prepared as we can be to be ready for the next week. But let's also go try and win what is now a marquee event and winning the 360 Nationals. There is no shame in nobody's game to go, oh, okay, well, yeah, I won the 360 Nationals. Dude, that's a big thing.
Big thing.
So, yeah, it's super cool. It's probably going to start attracting more of a crowd, to that week.
It's funny you mentioned that. I said the same thing.
It has to.
People that weren't planning on coming for the weekend, all of a sudden now, guess what? The motorhome might have left a day early.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you roll in there and go watch a Friday and Saturday, or even just Saturday?
Well, if you remember, I think people have even told you, man, like, hey, the 360 Nationals, Gordy, you're going to have to come sometime.
I've heard it. I've heard it a bunch, and unfortunately, I don't know unless if the USA Nationals moves weekends, maybe. But you're
already missing the north-south.
Yeah,
so giving up another one's kind of
north-south.
tough.
I can't do 2 weekends in a row. I could do one. Maybe later in life, once we're not parading around racing as much, maybe we'll check it out. But yeah, it's obviously awesome. It's just another massive weekend for Knoxville, and I mean, I know I'll be tuned in. We'll be watching from Cedar Lake 100%. I watch as much sprint car racing as the normal fan does, I promise. I'm tuned in. We watched Weed Sport last night, and it's just, like I said, it's really cool, and it just keeps building what is the atmosphere of Knoxville, to even longer, it's not 5 days in Knoxville anymore. It's 10 days in Knoxville.
Exactly. It's turned into, like, I can remember when I first go into the 360 Nationals, and it was always a great event, and but it seems like it's really kicked into overdrive, and I think you hit it on the head. Track time at Knoxville means so much. I mean, you look at no high limit races over last weekend. What happens? Rico says, not only am I going there, I'm going to go test one more time.
Yep.
If I'm competitors, you got to be going, this kid is getting more and more laps on this joint,
yep,
and he's already as vital and dominant, what we've seen at Knoxville. And then you see Rico go out there, practice, said, oh, yeah, we found a few things.
Yeah.
It makes it a little better. I'm just curious, if you're a racer and you're watching, if you're David Cravel and you're seeing Rico say, yeah, we practiced, we found a few things, and then we won on Saturday night, kind of like put yourself with him, like, are you on?
I mean, absolutely. That's a big thing. When you're able to go test at a place you're getting ready to go race a big race at, that matters, because those little things that you limit your adjustments down to, where you go, okay, let's try this. Okay, that wasn't very good. Let's go ahead and scratch that out. Well, you've made your notebook smaller. You want your notebook to be as small as possible when you roll in there for the Nationals. You don't want to be taking big swings at stuff. You don't want to be going, well, shit, we didn't think this was going to happen, or why are we doing this now? You want to be going, all right, let's make a couple clicks here and there. Let's maybe try this. You don't want to be doing the big massive adjustments, because if you're doing that, you're probably not fast enough to win it. And those guys aren't going there to run second. They're not going there to just make the race. They want to win that race as bad as anybody does. And that Rico and them going there, letting Ricky Warner get more laps at that place. Obviously his notebook is massive, right? Of things like, hey, we could try this. We did this one year. Let's try this. Okay. Well, that just gets them as a team more dialed in for what is a massive prelim night on Wednesday or Thursday or whatever it may be. And then from there, they're looking, going, okay, we know what we want to do for the A-main on Saturday. We have the adjustment during the open red on Saturday night. If we're too loose, if we're too tight, or we need a little bit of here, we already know what we're going to. We don't have to second guess it. So now the confidence is up. Your driver doesn't feel like, oh, are we making the right decision? Like, he's like, yep, this thing's going to be even better than it was. So it's a big thing, and that's why they're doing it. I mean, it's very obvious that's why they're doing it, because you need as many laps as you can get at any racetrack. I would say, if you could say, hey, you can have 50 more laps before we pay all this money out, you want it? You're damn right I want it. Yeah, absolutely I want it. I want it, every day of the week. So it's it's going to be a super exciting weekend to watch all the racing that goes on there and what happens. And I'm sure, our buddy Reitzel he would have been right there in that mix.
But you know what? And that was the next thing I want to get into, because the teams made driver changes. Everybody's probably kind of like solidified now through a lot of it. So we get Tyler Courtney, of course, banged up, out probably for the remainder of the season. Heartbreaking. Just heartbreaking, because
I did talk to him today, by the way. Said he's doing better. He said not perfect but better. So I'm glad to hear that. But
we get Gio. Gio jumps in the ride, and so Gio goes into the 7BC. Then we get Emerson Axum going into his old ride in the 18 car, which he looked. You could tell he was starting to get more comfortable in the car last night. And I think the big thing was a great move for Aaron Reitzel and his team getting Justin Sanders.
Yeah.
People forget about when he subbed in for Anthony Macri and ran the Nationals, they were good.
Yeah.
And Justin and Aaron's excited about this. And it works out perfect too, is then they leave there and they go to the West Coast, and they got a guy in their car running for points that's been at every one of those racetracks.
Yeah. Yep.
So kind of talk about on the changes you saw. You like the changes?
I really think all those teams made the moves that anybody else thought they would do, right? Obviously Gio wasn't going to be without a seat. That fed him right in, to Sonny's ride, as a guy who's already got the experience that's needed. The KCP team picking up a guy like Emerson. He's young. Clearly he's very talented. He's got a big right foot, not scared of anything. He called himself out, after the heat race yesterday at Weedsport, and said if I wasn't being such a sissy at the end of the day, so we might have got ourselves in the dash. So it's going to take him a minute to transition into that ride, to get with our crew chief and figure out the things that they like and what he likes and how they start to gel. But yeah, and then obviously Justin Sanders clearly is a talent. He's won a lot of races in a lot of different racetracks across the country. But as you said, going out to the West Coast, that makes the most sense for them, right? Let's get a guy in here who's comfortable going to those racetracks. We're still fighting for points, and that allows them to maybe even widen their notebook at the sense that says, hey, we're going to learn a few things as well. So yeah, I think all three of those teams made the right move to put themselves in the best position to be successful, especially short term. So it'll be interesting to see. It's still kind of weird when you see the 18 car and think Emerson. It's going to be a little goofy, just watching the 7BC run around there, and it being Gio, that throws everybody off. But I also don't want to discount what Cole Duncan did at Lernerville, to just get
good point
launched into that ride and goes out there. I think he run 10th or 11th at Lernerville on Saturday night, whatever it was, and thought it was cool for a guy like that to get a shot in a bigger ride. And I thought he did just as well as anybody could have done, just getting catapulted into that style of ride. And there's I'm sure there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. So it was cool to see him have a good enough run that I'm sure they were happy with it. I would imagine so.
I'm excited for Gio's opportunity to work with Jake. I think it's a great fit for both of them. Naturally, it's not Sunshine, because Sunshine and Jake, that's brothers.
Yes.
I mean, that's just but still, I think when I look at the different teams, to me, the Gio and Jake seem like they have a better opportunity of gelling more quickly probably than anyone, just because of the maturity levels.
Yeah.
Even though they're both still so young.
Yeah, right.
But they just. You just see, you can sense that their personalities. It's going to be a nice, and Sunshine's going to guide that.
Yes, for sure.
He's going to be right there watching this thing develop, and with basically hands on, and so I'm excited for that team. But one of the biggest things that came up, Gordy, and I got to share this with you, and it just shocked me. Sammy Swindell entered the Knoxville Nationals. This is his 49th Knoxville Nationals.
That's crazy.
And it would be 50 had he not hit the push truck at Lernerville.
Oh, right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So we lost a year. Otherwise, it'd be celebrating his 50th Knoxville Nationals. I don't care who you are. That is an achievement. That to run a 410 sprint car and to be at 50 Knoxville, basically 50 Knoxville Nationals, just tells you the kind of man that guy is and how he's driven.
Big whole set of balls on him. That's what he's got. That's what it sounds like to me. You know, I mean, obviously Sammy is a legend of our sport. You know, it's cool to have that nostalgicness of having Sammy Swindell at the Knoxville Nationals, because why wouldn't you want him there, right? Why would you not want a guy like Sammy Swindell in the pit area? No matter what he does, no matter if he runs the F main on Saturday, it doesn't even matter, because you look back one day and say, man, I remember when Sammy raced. I remember when Steve raced. I remember, Doug Wolfgang, his last Nationals. Whenever that becomes like, for Sammy to still be bold enough to say, I'm going to get in a race car and go rip around here, which this was really a really cool point that Savannah actually made to me the other night. So we were sitting there and watching qualifying from somewhere, and somebody was like a second off the pace, compared to what quick time was. I don't think people realize that even if you're a second off the pace at a late model event or a sprint car event, that you are flat out fucking getting it still. And to sometimes people at home go, well, hey, you should just quit. And listen, I'm all for saying, yeah, if you're 2 seconds off or you're just out there in the absolute way, by all means, you can say whatever you want. But Sammy's not that, mind you. Like, there's been plenty of times even that he's gone and hopped in 360 stuff and been competitive and different things. And I'm not saying he's going to go out there and make the A main on Saturday night, but he still has enough pace to do that. And so, people at home need to realize sometimes too that just because you're a second off doesn't actually mean you're like, oh, you're just so terrible, you need to just go flat out hang it up, because that is still absolutely moving at a lot of these places. So, and I feel like Knoxville is one of those too where of all places,
let's go hang our head at Knoxville, right? So
and so it's it's really cool to see. I'm pumped that Sammy's going to be there. I didn't know he was going to be there, but that's really cool, and it's great for the event. It's and he should be celebrated at this event, right? That people should be proud. I know they will be. The fans of Knoxville, the sprint car fans that know, they are happy.
Anytime Sammy Swindell puts a uniform on, is in the pit area, we need to appreciate him.
Yeah.
It's because you don't know when that last day. Well, everybody, you never know when that last day is, but for a guy that's had the career that he's had, and he just brings an element of, I think Kendra said it best when she was on the show, when she brought back all the past winners and stuff, and she said watching Steve and Sammy at Knoxville, Sammy's still in uniform, Steve's in street clothes, and yet Steve's like his biggest fan.
Yep. Yeah.
And for doing it, and Bobby Allen, they still look up to him.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, Sammy, man, if you're watching this show and you're listening, keep fucking digging.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely.
Do what you want to do, man. Yeah. Here he was in St. Louis doing a ball game last week. I saw on social media.
Nah, it's
so
cool.
It's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, those guys are pioneers of what we've done. So if they want to be out there, then they deserve to be out there. They've earned every bit of the right to want to go and compete in these races, because I know growing up as a kid, when I went to the outlaw races, I was pumped to go watch Sammy and Steve, Jack Hoddenchild, and those guys. I used to go get everyone their autographs every time I was at the racetrack, because those guys were at one point the very top of the sport, and they're what helped grow the sport to what it is now, to why it's as exciting as it is. There's people next week at Knoxville that will have on the Quaker State 11s, the Channel Lock 1s, all of that stuff, because those guys mean so much to what has become sprint car racing. They're the reason they race for as much money as they do now, because those guys were bigger than the sport at the end of the day. Without those guys, those household names, this sport doesn't grow to what it is now. And I could think back watching those guys run around Bristol, which was the most ignorant shit I've ever seen in my life. And they did it wide ass open like it was no big deal.
No.
So it's cool. I'm excited to hear that, and hopefully I run into him. I need to probably go over there and get a picture with him, because it'd be cool to have one of that,
especially in uniform.
Hang it up, we'll hang it up here in the Dirt Parlor studio.
So kind of what's your Knoxville plans? What are you looking at doing?
We'll roll in there either late Tuesday night or first thing Wednesday morning. We'll get down there, and really from there, I'm just a race fan. I get to go hang out, and I'll pop down to Sheldon and their guys' pit area on their prelim night, and obviously Big Don's, and go check in with them. And I just kind of take it all in. It's cool for me I see a lot of people that I know, obviously a lot of racers. I see crew members, a lot of fans and stuff that we run into. Hell, last year, a good one. We were standing there. It was me, Casey Schumann, and Kenny Canada, who's now the tech guy.
Oh, I still have a tough time with that.
And it was super funny. Somebody walked up and said, "Oh, look at this! A bunch of fucking fender guys hanging out here at the Knoxville raceways during Knoxville Nationals." And a guy went walking by wearing a Gordy Gundaker T-shirt. And I looked right at him. I said, "Yeah, well, how about that one then?" And I was like, "Holy shit! Check that out!" So it was super cool, but. I get to go see my guys at K1. LaJoy sometimes pops in and out of there. So there's a lot of people I still get to see that are part of our racing. That's a lot of fun for me. So usually about 2 o'clock, I'll make me a drink and start hanging out with everybody. And then you can find me at Dingus after the races for sure. So, but yeah, I just enjoy it. I take it all in. I pop into the Casey's. I pop into all the restaurants around there and just kind of just hang out, man. I love walking the pit area and seeing all the stuff and seeing the new designs that guys are doing. I'm really excited this year. We're doing a couple guys shirts for this year. We're going to do a bunch of guys hats and a lot of different stuff. So yeah, it's really fun for me just to kind of go soak all that up and live it up.
Is it hard for you knowing that you've got a race, of course you've got the family and stuff, that the fact I'm saying walk away? To go, gosh dang it, man, I love the sprint car guys. I had such a fun time, and now I don't get to do this again
that part is hard.
That's what I was getting to. It's not, I know what you're doing with the race car.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the fact that you're going to have a great time.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to have so much fun during the week, and you're going to be going, oh, man, I don't get to do this for a while.
I've said it every year now when I leave the Knoxville Nationals that Sunday when you leave is the worst day of the calendar year, because it's like, shit, all the fun is over. Now it's got to go back to reality, and it's like, all right, now we got to go back and work, and then work on do all that stuff. Like I get to soak all that stuff in, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy being a race fan as much as I do being a race car driver. It's being around those guys, I think it's cool for me too, because I get to see a lot more in-depth stuff than a lot get to when I go there and be part of being down there talking with crew chiefs and what they're thinking, what they're talking about changing, what the racetrack's doing. So I do love doing that. I always find it fun. I get to see Tony Stewart up there every year. He usually hollers at me when I'm walking by his motorhome and is like, well, he did it last year. He made me come over and sit and watch the drag cars for like 30 minutes with him, because Leah and Hagen were qualifying somewhere, and we're sitting over there drinking a beer while the sprint cars are hot lapping, and we're watching drag cars, and it's stuff like that you don't get to do anywhere else but Knoxville.
It's priceless.
So, yeah, a lot of fun, and I've. It's kind of the same deal. I've known Tony a long time, so it's neat because we talk racing while we're at the race, and so it's a lot of that stuff. And yeah, actually, I say we've talked a little bit more now racing. Now he's a dad, I'm a dad. We get to shoot the shit sometimes about that, and so it's really cool. And yeah,
we got to get him on the show here too.
Yeah,
we've got to get him on the show.
Yeah, and you just can't beat what. What Knoxville is. There's just so much going on that getting to take that in as just a fan and see what the event really is all about is just cool for me, because I think with having all the different backgrounds I have of the racetrack side of it, being a racer, wanting to be a race fan, I get to do all three of those things inside that week. You know, I get to, you know, live up a lot of that stuff. And, yeah, it's just, man, that's why I love going every year. It's why I will go every year, you know, until I can't go anymore, I guess.
Right,
I'll be
absolutely.
there. I'll be there for sure. So, yeah, it's just, it's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to get there already and hang out and see everybody and, you know, get to, hell, it's cool now getting to take my daughter and let her live it up. She thinks sprint car racing and late model racing, she loves them both, and she knows some sprint car drivers now and can pick them out on TV. So it's fun watching her get excited, you know, when her Papa Donnie's racing, or, you know, she sees Wyndham on there, and she'll, you know, pointing that stuff out. So it's a lot of family stuff is really, really cool. Obviously, Savannah has loved it for a long time. You know, she's been to I don't know how many Knoxville Nationals, but yeah, I mean, hopefully Donnie ends up in Victory Lane again, and we'll get to go down there.
Well, you know, before we leave the show, we got to make some predictions, I think, for the 360 Nationals. We won't do the 410. We'll save that for next week. But we'll really get in depth on the 410. We're going to cover Cedar Lake. We'll get back to Cedar Lake. We'll talk a little bit about probably the north-south a little bit. It's coming up. But, of course, we're probably going to dominate. You know, I would think we're going to be talking a lot about the big event at Knoxville, the granddaddy of them all. Who you like this week of the 360 Nationals? Do you think it's a guy? Is it a high limit guy that goes in there that hasn't been running a lot of 360 stuff? Or are you going to go with a guy? Or are you thinking guys have been going there, racing there a lot? You know, kind of talk about that.
I think I'm going to take Brownie. That's my pick. I'm going to pick Brian Brown, and the reason being, truly to me, is one thing for when you run the 360 stuff compared to a 410, right? Is you cannot put yourself in a bad spot, meaning you can't get laid into the cushion near as hard, right? You got to be very temperamental on the wheel, and you're still up on the wheel, don't get me wrong, but a guy like Brownie, who has a million laps around that place, who runs the 360 stuff, who runs the 410 stuff, I think his experience at that place, and they've been really, really good up there. I think, you know, he's going to be really hard to beat, and I expect Kyle and Rico and Brad and all those guys to be really good. Don't get me wrong. I just think that Brownie is going to be who comes out on top on Saturday.
You know, I'm going to surprise a few people here. I can't believe I'm actually going to do this, but Aaron Reitzel's team is so good, and I watched Sanders race enough around Knoxville. And the only thing that stinks is the fact that he's got no laps and he hasn't been there in a couple of years of going there on Thursday. I don't think he can win the race, but I think they can podium. And I think J-Mac, after watching him last week, you could tell he hadn't been in Knoxville. He was getting more comfortable last week, and I watched him drive up in there. But I just, it's hard for me to go against Rico.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, but the only thing that scares me about him is the fact that not running the 360. But at the same time, Ricky Warner, he just seems like he's like the Rubik's Cube, right? I'll figure it out. Yep. Just give me a minute.
Yep. And he clearly has.
You know, so, but I'm like you, though. Brown is not gonna. I don't think we all know he raced Rico so hard last week, and he looked so good.
Yeah. And
he still has been boom, boom, boom. But I do like, you know, I like Rico to win the race, and I think McFadden's going to be strong. I think Justin Peck showed a lot of flashes last week. Again, I'm curious about the motor program, but
Peck was really good at Volusia.
We also, yes, that's why it's like part of me. Yeah. It's just that it's going to be a great show. Yeah. I don't think you know what, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sam Haferty wins the damn thing.
Yeah,
you know,
well, he's won it before. Can do it, yeah.
So, anything you want to talk about before you get off?
Yeah, we got to make a Cedar Lake pick.
Oh, Cedar Lake, man, that's simple, man. After last weekend, what happened? I got to go RTJ, man. I think RTJ, after the weekend he had, that they're gonna figure this thing out and get back to the top.
Yeah,
that's my pick. What about you?
The 49.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that, you know.
Man, he's had a lot of success up there.
Yes, he has.
And
you think after last week what happened, him get snookered?
I think he's going to have a little revenge tour, and you know, I've just watched him make so many laps there, and how comfortable he is getting around Cedar Lake, that he's going to be, he's going to be really tough to beat. I mean, obviously you got the 32 and the 1 and all those cars, but
Sheppy was almost one to make that pick, and I just figured after what Thornton kind of went through last week, that usually doesn't happen back-to-back weeks to this guy.
There was rumor that they were possibly not even going up there. They were talking about if they were even going up there.
If they don't show up, I'll take the Rocket 1.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. They're real.
I'm going to step off. Yeah, I'm going to go off. I'm stepping off the limb.
Yeah, let me get on this limb real quick, real far. But,
it's the other thing is, man, I want to shout out. One thing I'll say about JD, supposed to go fishing this week with one of our partners, and on the way up there. So usually, if JD's fishing and racing, and there's no points, so there's no pressure,
right,
for the Lucas guys going up there and racing. They can just wing. Whatever happens. Go for it.
Yeah, I expect. Obviously the 32 is going to be good. I feel like Nick's going to be hard to beat because, man, when the racetrack on Saturday night gets to that slow and slick and you kind of got to maneuver around there and get out in the middle of the racetrack, if it's there, Nick has proven that he's just about as good as anybody out in the middle of the racetrack. Heck, at Fairberry the other night, had that whole ordeal not happen on the restart with Bobby, he had just charged up to 4th and was about to make it a 4-car tussle there up front, and he was right out in the middle of the racetrack. So, there's a lot of players going into this weekend, and I just like I said, I watched the 49 win a couple of them, and I watched them almost win a couple more. So it's tough for anybody to top him up there.
By the way, before we close, I have to touch on one thing with Gordy. Is I understand that in the golf outing that these boys all got destroyed by a woman golfer, Austin Smith.
She was a LPGA player.
So it's still I'm just saying though.
Yeah.
She got to play from the ladies' tee boxes, I understand, with an LPGA card.
Clanton brought in a ringer. And Trevor said it best that there was 5 of them getting backpacked. They said the team shot 18 under and she shot 16 under. So somewhere in the mix, they made a couple birdies, but I'm sure it was off of her shot. So
I'm giving you this time to call somebody out.
Shane Clanton for being big dummy. That's what he is. Yeah, bringing in a ringer and getting us all. We're gonna have to veto that for next year, or we're all gonna start bringing ringers in. Maybe that's what we need to do.
Just call my buddy Rob.
Because I know one thing. My team, them boys, I love them to death, but. Hell, they don't even know we're out there playing golf. They're drinking and carrying around. They bought a beer cart, like a concession cart, a couple months back. Ted Brown's Quality Paint and Body Shop boys, and they detailed this thing. Got her all shined up red and silver, and had her full of beer. Had mounted a flat screen TV on one end, 2 speakers hanging off the back. You could hear them coming from a mile away, and we'd be on the tee box. Getting ready to tee off, me and my guy Les, and the other 3 carts of our team would be nowhere to be found. Hell, we'd hit out there, and then I'd have to call them and say, hey, we're out in the middle of the 3rd fairway, and I'd look back, and they'd be on the 2nd tee box. Like, we can't play no golf, so, but you know what?
They had more beer than they had balls?
Oh, gosh.
More golf balls, more bottles?
That's their goal every year is that they're going to outdrink the rest of the teams. If they outdrink the rest of the teams, they won the day. So... But I will say at the end of the day, when we go to the auction, they spend just as much money as anybody else does. And that's what that day is all about. It's all about giving back to the Shriners Hospital. And I know they raised a lot of money on Saturday or on Thursday. David Finnerty, that is with my group. Hell, he was the culprit of getting this concession cart. Brought back an old Scott door. And I think if I remember right, they said it brought $6,100 and it got donated back, and it brought like another $5,000 on top of it or something like that. It was like $11,000 to that door. So, that stuff there. That's what that whole day is about. My door brought $2,600. I think. Awesome. By the time it was done. So I don't know how much. I don't remember what the total number was that was raised, but that's what that entire day is for. And kudos to Matt and his entire group there at Fairberry that kind of allows that to kind of take place, and Dan, the guys that put on the golf outing, Charlie Hazelton at Varsity Screen Printing, he donates a lot of stuff to he donates all the polos to the drivers. He had us looking like orange pumpkins out there this year. We were bright. I took mine off by the fourth hole. I take it off every year. Tarps off by the fourth hole because it's way too hot out there. So, it's an awesome day, and kudos to those guys for everything they do. And I'm already ready to get back to Fairberry for next year.
Do you have a rant or anything you want to do before we close, or you're pretty happy with status quo with everything we got going on?
I think I don't know. There's a lot I'm sure I could rant on. I think. If I could make one rant, I feel like there's been a lot of discussion lately. My good buddy Irish Saunders called me the other day. You used to be the big player up there at Hoosier, and you ran Plymouth Racetrack, and him and I had a really good talk, kind of about where the sport is right now, and as great as it looks, how bad it actually I think is in its own sense of what it costs and all these things. And I want us all to somehow find a way to get a grasp on it, because I know guys right now are low on. There's a lot of race car teams out there that are low on motors, because Glenn and his guys at Clements and Cornette, they all cannot keep up with this stuff, and we're all racing so much, right? We're trying to race 90, 100, 110 times, and I don't think that's the answer anymore. We heard Mark Richards talk right about it.
I was just going to say that.
You talk about a guy who's seen everything. He flat out said it on our show that, how much he spends in a year. It's just not feasible anymore. It's not real, realistic. It's great for them couple big fish at the very top, but what about the guys that are really helping generate what the sport is, that's all the way through? And I think it would be hard pressed not to get on here and talk about it and say, man, what are we doing? Like, what are we trying to accomplish, and who are we trying to fool that we're in this great spot? We're going to be this way until we run everybody into the ground, and then we go, well, shit, why didn't we fix it sooner? There's a time to fix it. I think that time's now. I think there's a lot of things that could be done. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I think there's a lot of really smart people who have probably a lot of good opinions on how we could make what we're doing better, how we could, find it to be a little more, fundable for teams across the board. I don't know. There's a lot. I know Irish, I'm sure Irish is listening. He just told me he tuned in there, last week, and we're going to get Irish on the show. We have to. It'd be awesome to get him on here.
Absolutely.
He, both his kids race. So he's been a track promoter, a team owner. He's been part of, a massive part of Hoosier Tire. And, he's out there going, what are we doing? At the same point. So, there's a lot of conversations that need to be had about where we're at. We have a big spot in our sport right now that's incoming, right? We're getting to a very national level, and I could say what I guess we don't want to do is we don't want to fuck it up. We want to make sure that we make this sport as healthy as it can be from the top down, all across the board, for tracks, promoters, team owners, race car drivers, the fans, all these things. And it starts with the race teams being able to afford what they're doing, because if you can't afford it, we're not going. It goes next to the promoters and the track owners, that if they aren't getting the fans, or they're not getting their share of the pie, they're going to go away. I know I saw today East Moline, I think, cancel or shut down. So we don't want to see that. And there's a lot of things that need to be talked about and brought to light, and not just talked about on a social media platform, talked about with the people who make the decisions, talked about with the teams and the drive. Like, there's so many people that should be involved in these things, going, how do we find a way to make it affordable for everybody across the board, right? Hoosier came out with that deal that they were going to this NLMT tire to make it affordable, but yet prices have just gone up. That doesn't make it more affordable. It makes it worse. So, I don't know. There's a lot of things I think that could be discussed. in which we're going to discuss them on this show with a lot of people. And I think that's good. I think what we're doing is correct. I think getting these opinions and their voices heard is what this show is all about. It's why we love this sport. We have passion for the sport of dirt racing, and we want it to thrive. We want everybody to thrive inside it. We don't want anybody walking away going, I just can't flat out do this anymore. You know,
one of the things, Gordy, that I took away from Mark Richards that I thought he hit it right on the head was the local heroes. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that really hit home with me.
Yeah.
When he started talking about they're gone.
The only place
We've priced them out.
There's the only place there's local heroes left is Knoxville. And it's only because Knoxville is obtainable to go race there every week. Now, I'm not saying it's even obtainable or affordable to go race there, but they're putting events on every week where guys are able to go do it. But we don't have, I grew up when Mom and Dad had Tri-City, we had what was, if you won the championship that year at our place, you had a banner hanging on the back of the grandstands. You looked at like, shit, okay, I got to go beat Randy Cordy, and I got to go beat Billy Laycock, and I got to go beat God knows who else, at all these places. The Mark Voigts, that I grew up around with, and Mark Gonsman, and Kenny Rumble, and Mark Aller. Those guys were household names when you went to the racetrack on the weekends. You went there to see them locally, and when the big guys came to town, you thought, this boy's better buckle in because these local guys might bust their ass. And it's not to say the local guys can't do it, but they're just not any local guys anymore because they can't afford to do this the way we're doing it, right? The way we're having to spend the money to afford to go up and down the road, to do it. I mean, I talked to Hoffman's owner today, Ty Twerg, and he talked about how he's over budget on what he's doing this year, just purely because they're having, they're racing the Outlaw Tour and they got to have more guys and things. And yeah, if they win the points or they get second, sure, yeah, then they make it back. But it's just, I don't know. I think there's a way that we can make this better and make people want to be a part of the sport more. Make the younger generation want to be a part of it, not just going, hey, yeah, I'll come work, but how much? Like, let's make it where this sport is awesome, to be part of, and the owners are happy, and then the teams and everybody is. So, yeah, I think the further we get into this stuff, the more conversations are really going to keep developing, because you're going to start to see some of the bigger players start going, man, is this really worth it? Are we really doing ourselves a...
And that's definitely going to be the wake-up call.
Yeah, because when you lose one of them, you're going to go, shit, we're starting to go down a slippery slope in a hurry. So, yeah, I just... like I said, I'm not knocking our sport by any means. I love our sport, and I'm proud to be part of it and reap some of the benefits of what we've created. But there is definitely some ways to do better than what we're doing, and I hope we start to see some kind of changes before it's too late.
It's been kind of fun with the Dirt Parlor and stuff. You got a guy like Tim Green, who's in the Hall of Fame, walking around at Chico, California, watching his grandson with a Dirt Parlor T-shirt on. It just goes to show you that I believe we're doing all the right things, yeah. And our name is getting more and more out there. You look at this, the views, and man, fans, I'm having a great time with my man here. Yeah. I can't tell you. I look forward to these Mondays with the team that I have and the people I've gotten to share this with, and thank the man upstairs for making this happen. And that's all I've got to say this week. I'll let Gordy kind of close the show down, and if he's got anything else to say. But thank you to everybody that listens to the show. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. No, I just feel the same way. I'm super thankful. It's been really cool for the couple of people I've got to see recently that come up and talk about the Dirt Parlor with me. By all means, make sure you stop and talk about it. I love hearing your guys' opinions and the stories you like to hear. And make sure you stop by if you see me at Knoxville, and we'll have some Dirt Parlor T-shirts with us and some hats and some different things. And gonna have something set up pretty cool at Knoxville. I think that we'll get out next week, and yeah. So just thank you guys. Thank you to all of our great partners: Steve Martin with Nutrient Ag, Jeff Hoker Trucking, Reed Millard Family Chapels, Bo Popejoy with Hot Rod Septic, Bodies by Skinny. Checker Customs. Just
our list is getting longer.
Yep, my man right here, Don Martin. So thank you guys, and see you next week.